And we're live here on a Monday night for a Monday Night Football pregame show on the Going for Two Live network. This is the 2-point conversion. We're not going to peace out, but we will have the intro video play.
Yeah.
Yes. Bengals at Cowboys. Oh, what a bad matchup. No, just kidding. There's some very important skilled players playing, but yes, we have a Bengals Cowboys Monday Night Football game here tonight, and we are here to host this. The hostess with the mostest is Gladys Louise Tyler. How are you doing, Gladys?
I'm hanging in there, Kyle. How are you? How's Canada?
Cold, wintry, lots of snow.
Oh yeah? How
Oh
much snow
my
did you
God,
get?
I don't even want to figure it out, but it's been pretty consistent for like the last 3-4 days.
You've been snowing. It's been snowing there for where you live for 3 days.
Yeah, basically.
Oh shit! That's
I don't think we quite got to like the levels that it was in that Bills game, Bills 49ers or the Browns Steelers.
right.
But we may have got maybe that much of snow spread out over 3-4 days. So yeah.
Awesome.
Some say winter's coming. It's definitely here, even though officially it's still fall. It doesn't feel like it though. And
Hey, Jamie.
hello, Jamie. Saying hi, Kyle and Gladys. And yes, I'm Kyle Sumner. I say a lot. I say
Hi, Bam. What up?
And bam, I'm trying to take your first round bye. I might even succeed in doing that. So yeah, in the All Money In Dynasty League, which I'm sure tomorrow night on Speak on It, Danny and Dee will definitely talk about that. Which again, part of our Going for Two Live network here. So be sure you're on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. If you want to comment, subscribe, like the video. And yeah, Bam being very polite and saying hi, Jamie and Gladys, even though I was saying, "No, I'm going to take your first round bye." The Canadian being really rude. It's funny because if I don't get the first round bye, I think Akili is going to take it from Bam. So either way, a Canadian is going to be mean and take Bam's first round bye. Unless something happens tonight, maybe Bam could still catch up.
Well, I mean, the thing about
oh boy, yeah, D put up a monster week. I mean, this is bonkers. How much does he need? So you need T. Higgins and Cam Taylor-Britt right now to get like 64 points combined, but D also still has Chase Brown. So yeah.
I think that's the thing about the game tonight. Like on the surface, it's just a future game that they wanted to flex out of, but couldn't because of the whole Simpson thing. But for fantasy purposes, there are incredible, even on both sides of the ball, there are an incredible lot of fantasy players that are going to make or break people's leagues tonight. Like, I mean, yeah.
I mean,
So,
Bam, I'm sorry to even surprise you with this, Bam, but I guess it's maybe better you hear it now than wake up tomorrow and see, oh my God, I'm in 4th place. Because the way the All Money In works, it's record first and then total points. The top 4 teams all look like we're going to be tied unless Bam and Akili win their matchups, and then they are suddenly like a win ahead of everyone. But if they both lose, suddenly like myself and what's the other team's name? Shits and Grins, what a team name. Based on total points, will actually be close. Like right now, Akili has 2,026 points. Bam has 2,025 points. I have 2,023 points, and then Shits and Grins has 2,021. Like we're all within 4 points of each other total for the course of a whole season, which is kind of wild and crazy. We have 4 teams at the top of the league that are that close in points. So it's like this past week, I'm right now projected to score 174. Shits and Grins is projected to score over 200. And what that'll enable both of us to do is move up to 9-5. If Bam loses and is also 9-5, now if Bam wins, he gets in no matter what, and he's 10-4. But again, he's down by 60 with D still players to go, so it's pretty tough. So if we're all at 9-5, then it'll just come down to total points. So in theory, Bam, you could still get the first round bye if Higgins has enough points to catch up to me. Right now, you're about 40. Essentially 40 points behind me. So if T. Higgins can make up that difference, who do I have going tonight? Oh, Eric Kendricks. Funny, it's defensive players that are coming down. It's all coming down to defensive players. So if Cam Taylor-Britt can at least equal Kendricks, you're going to need like 40 points from T. Higgins, which I actually sincerely hope you'll get because that may allow me to survive in Scott Fishbowl with T. Higgins and Cavante Turpin. I'm wearing the what I call the dark side of the fish bowl, which I'm wearing with the fear of potentially being eliminated tonight. I think you're throwing in that boat too, Gladys. So we made it
Oh
to the
yeah.
Scott Fishbowl playoffs, made it through a couple of weeks of playoffs, but yeah, it looks like it may end here. Cavante Turpin, 50-point week incoming. He's had two 47-point weeks because Scott Fishbowl scoring with the kick returns is insane. Thank you, Cavante Turpin. Likely my team MVP. I think he's literally outscored every player on my team except Derrick Henry. Like he's outscored every quarterback I have. He's my wide receiver one. Tight ends aren't even close. Like Freiermuth and Gesicki, get out of here. They're not even close to scoring near Turpin. And like I've had some really productive running backs: Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Kenneth Walker. Points per game, Turpin's outscoring all of them. So Cavante Turpin, baby. And yeah, to that point, IDPs are clutch. We only have two. I mean, there's some leagues where IDPs are like, oh, I've been in leagues we have to start 6 IDP players. It's like 2 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 2 defensive backs. Like it's very specific. Ours is just 2 IDP flexes. But it still can make a difference. I mean, I got 10 points from Jordan Brooks. It was Jay Brooks, his first name. Yes. Sorry, I'll say the full first name there. I assume that's Missy yelling at me. Don't just say Jay Brooks. Jordan Brooks. That's his full name. He got me 10 points. So 10.5 points from an IDP player is pretty good to say. And maple syrup supply, I think, is pretty good. I mean, every time I go to the grocery store, I can find some. I haven't heard anything of a syrup shortage or some shock syrup shortage in Canada. Anyway, yeah. So yay maple syrup and yay fantasy football playoffs and yay getting into the playoffs. So you talked about maybe not in certain leagues, your home league, you need to push it to get in. I got to say kudos to Gladys in the FPC Dynasty League. Her and I finished as the 2 worst teams last year. We had the 101, 102. And I think it's pretty commendable. We both turned our teams around. I'm at least finishing 500. Actually, I probably will, thanks to losing to you this week. Brandon Cooks gets me 32 points. If I get 32 points to Brandon Cooks, I win. And I might still miss the playoffs anyway, which would be hilarious.
I think it's possible.
You're essentially guaranteed a playoff spot now. In fact, you'll go from being the 11th place last year to a top 4 team at the end of the regular season. So kudos to you, Gladys. Good turnaround.
Thanks. If only I had that kind of luck yesterday in my DFS.
Great. Well, I mean, your journey to win the FPC Dynasty League continues. Win 3 matchups, potentially that championship can be yours. So.
Yeah.
Oh, and we just gave
playing this zombie league too.
We just gave Bam an idea for the league, and I gotta say, Bam, like in this league, Scott Fish loves to do kind of crazy stuff with scoring. He purposely boosted the return yards. Like I've seen leagues where like kick return yards are 1/100th of a point. So if you want to get 1 point on kick return yards, you need 100 yards essentially. And I think conventional scoring, you could equal it to like 1/10 of a point, right? Like we do with rushing yards and receiving yards. Every 10 yards is a point. That would be huge for kick return scoring. Scott Fish went even crazier than that, and kick returns are like 0.25 per return yard. So you or 0.4 per return yard. That's what it is. So it's like 25 return yards gets you a point. So these dudes are like that one play. It was against Washington a couple weeks ago when Turpin returned it like I think it was close to 90 yards for the touchdown. That was like I think kick return touchdowns are also 10 points. So that was like 13 points on that one play or something. It's kind of crazy stupid. But yeah, kick return yards don't have to be that insane where Cavante Turpin has a 47-point week, but it can definitely be something that could be added to make things interesting. So yeah, one more thing for the owners meeting that I'm sure D might rant about tomorrow. We'll see. Check back tomorrow. I told Dean he's not a fan of it. Okay. Well, I guess we saw. But yeah, big fan of tonight's game. But I guess before we get to that game, we'll talk about different ranting things. I mean, I usually rant, and Gladys is pretty good at that too. But I just assume it's always a rant. But is there something you'd like to talk
about? Who's do you see the numbers?
Well, I think Scott Fish is like, and that is kind of the point. It's meant to be like a fun big league. It's juice with like there's 4,400 people participating. So the stuff's pretty wild and wacky. And we weren't. I mean, this was the first year with the new kick return rule, so we weren't really sure how much it was going to affect. I think that was part of the spirit of making return yards such a massive thing. I think I know people in draft season, Scott Fishbowl draft season, everyone was talking about how Rashid Shaheed was this like, man, he was like the wide receiver 8 last year based on this year's scoring. And I think the way he started the year, it looked like he was on pace to do that. And then unfortunately ACL tear out for the year. But yeah, Vontae Turpin, league MVP.
Yeah, I think also like, and it's something that I forgot about completely, or else I would have played Jameis every week. But him not penalizing quarterbacks for interceptions. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
that should be actually called the Jameis rule or the Will Levis rule, whichever.
Well, and that was something I think Scott started to do last year. He went, I think, 2 years ago, like quarterbacks were getting negative points for sacks, and like there was a lot of very punitive things. And I think this past year, or like 2 years ago, so like the 2023 season, it was foods, and essentially he wanted to be as gluttonous as possible, boosted scoring for every position. Like it was wild how crazy the scoring got last year and took away all negative points. Well, he juiced the kick return yards this year. The rest of the scoring was pretty conventional. He tweaked some things here and there. Tight end premium on receptions and first downs, but tight end touchdowns were less than at other positions. So stuff kind of balanced out. The points per carry was there, but he kept the no negative points. So no negative points for interceptions. There's no negative points for fumbles. Kickers can't get negative points on missed field goals. If you have to play on sleeper and you have to play with a kicker, that's one of the reasons I love playing MFL for Scott Fishbowls. We didn't have to actually roster a kicker, which is great.
Oh, I played on sleeper.
Yeah, sleeper you have to. So that's the one thing with those formats that
It was
which doesn't make sense because you should be able to have a flex spot with a kicker. That's one of the flex spots. But because I've definitely seen other websites where you can do that, where a kicker can go into a flex spot if you enable it. I guess sleeper doesn't. They're still behind the times.
Yeah,
with it, sleeper.
No, I mean last year it was really bad, but this year it was fun. Probably more fun because I need the playoffs. I mean, to be honest, it's always more fun. But I played it in a couple leagues where scoring was like I think they copied the Scott Fishbowl maybe like with boosting points and not being penalized for things, which I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of not being penalized if your kicker sucks, Young Hoku. I'm a big fan of not, playing Jameis and not worrying about him throwing 3 interceptions because I know he's going to throw like 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. But of course, for that Monday night game, he was on my bench when he scored like 38, 40 points.
He was a QB1.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. But for this week, I think the main like we were talking about before we came on, I had a really bad week. I had a really bad what's the word? I had a really bad feel of things for this week, I think, for whatever reason. But there were quality players who weren't included in their team's offense for like the long Trey McBride didn't get a catch until the third quarter. Brian Thomas Jr. didn't get a catch until the third quarter. Brock Bowers, I don't even know what Vegas is doing. Like Brock Bowers, he's like the only player Jacoby Myers. Him and Jacoby Myers, the only 2 players that you basically have. Like I don't care if they're triple teaming him, you get him the ball. And Brock Bowers was underrepresented. It was just a weird kind of
Michael Mayer outscored him somehow.
I know. And then like AOC going down, Will Levis getting hurt, and then Josh Allen just balling and still losing the game. His team's still losing. It was just kind of a weird week, I think. And I think that Saquon not smashing against Carolina's run defense. I don't know. I don't even know about Philly's offense.
I mean, he looked amazing. He had like 120 yards, I think. Like he looked great running. He just didn't get the touchdowns. That's all it was.
Yeah, and I don't think 120 yards because he's lifted his floor. I don't think 120 yards is like a smash for Saquon.
We expect, we have such high expectations for him. He's the RB1 this year, right? Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And then Pickens late minute, no show for a hamstring injury.
I'm gonna say that's the reason you beat me in FBC Dynasty, even though it's probably not that.
Why, you have Pickens?
Well, not in my lineup, but yes, I do have Pickens.
Wait, you kept him in your lineup?
No, I didn't. I took
Oh,
I
okay.
actually, that's why I think that's how I got Brandon Cooks in the lineup. So if he goes off for 32 points, maybe not. Maybe then it will be. That's not happening.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to speak it into existence. If I say it 32 times, it might happen. I think I'm up to now 3. So
I need someone
still
to
got an hour left. 55 minutes.
Ferguson into existence for like, I don't know. I need what, maybe 100 points for Ferguson to make it the Scottish Bowl, but only 3 points for my home league. So anywhere between 3 and 100 points for Ferguson, I'm good with. Like, I can accept either, as long as he's in the game. As long as
Yeah, I mean, look, it's expected to play tonight, so
good.
yeah, he was at the end of the injury report. He was no longer questionable, so he had fully cleared concussion protocol and was back fully.
What about Diggs? Is he playing tonight?
I don't know. I guess I'll check the inactives.
What's up, Mickey Thrasher?
And then, I mean, you were talking about the bad week, and I will get to that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah, Trayvon Diggs is not on the inactive list, so I'm guessing he's in.
Damn it. All right.
Canadian tight end Tanner McLaughlin is inactive. My props are ruined. Just kidding.
I thought you went Chase Brown.
I did go Chase Brown. I'm just kidding. Other Canadian Bengals player, but we'll get to that soon. But yeah, talk about a bad week. My God, on Sunday, I feel like the only things I got right on the Sunday start sit stream, I almost said shit because I was complete shit. But the only things I got right were when I totally agreed with Jamie and Topher. We were all on the same page. Every time I went against them, it was the wrong decision. Braylon Allen over Zach Charbonnet is such an awful call. And Jamie called it. I mean, I thought Charbonnet in top 10 was wild. Turns out Jamie was right. Top 8 week this week.
But did you guys know that Kenneth Walker was out when you did the show?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought he was questionable up until like late.
No, I remember him. Well, I mean, in all the leagues I had him in, I saw on Saturday he was already ruled out. So.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't see him ruled out because I almost played him. I saw Breece Hall ruled out, so I almost played Braylon, but I didn't see Kenneth. I heard that he was more than likely not to play, but it was never official until.
Yeah, it can be weird sometimes.
Yeah. And well, I mean,
I was seeing places where Hardman was questionable last night, and he was put on the real life injured reserve. How is he questionable? Like on some fantasy sites still had him with a Q, and it's like, no.
I know. It's that I don't. We all know my distaste for the ESPN guy who.
And I mean, this was Jamie's argument. They were going to split that. Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen would both split pretty evenly, and they basically did. They almost had an identical number of carries. I mean, Davis got the touchdown and Allen didn't, so it really made it look worse. But yeah, no, for sure, the process was definitely to take Charbonnet. So I'll hope no one listened to me on Sunday and listened to Jamie and Topher the entire time.
Well, isn't Charbonnet the only one they have after Walker?
I mean, yeah, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So Mickey Thrasher
Seattle just played a good game. He just played a good game.
Sure.
Like Seattle played a good game. Arizona played Kyle Murray. I don't know. They come out of the. That's another thing that I noticed this year. Like it used to be that you count on teams coming out of the bye with like a little boost because they've gotten, I don't know, rest or whatever. There were several teams that came out of the bye that were worse than when they went into the bye, and Arizona definitely one of them. Like
I've known the Packers have done that too. Sometimes they come out of the bye and they look kind of sloppy and slow, and really rusty in that first week out. So like that's totally team dependent because some teams do look rejuvenated after their bye, but other teams kind of seem sluggish with the week off.
Yeah, I don't like. There was nothing to count on this year. There was nothing to count on unless Saquon Barkley. That's all you can count on this year. Saquon Barkley and Josh Allen, pretty much.
Yeah, Josh Allen. So Mickey Thrasher. I don't know if it's a wishing into an existence type of thing, but Gesicki Burrow kind of night tonight. I mean, I certainly think I ranked Joe Burrow at QB3 this week, so I certainly think Burrow's going to smash.
I think he's going to smash, but I think he's going to smash with T. Higgins.
Yeah, Higgins and Chase, right? And Chase Brown to a certain extent. Maybe Gesicki. I mean, Gesicki's really kind of like the fourth option there because they don't really have a third reliable wide receiver. Like, they don't have a Tyler Boyd anymore. There's a void. There's a Boyd void on that team, and maybe Gesicki kind of fills that the best. But that just means more targets for Chase and Higgins sometimes too.
I know.
And yeah, I also got Nick Chubb wrong. I ranked Chubb ahead. I said Chubb over Charbonnet, to be honest. I had him ranked higher. So yeah, that's another.
Against the Steelers?
He was RB7 against the Steelers 2 weeks ago.
In the snow.
And it's still same defense. I don't know. Clearly, I was wrong. It's funny because that was the game that Chubb looked the best, and he's been shit ever since. Like, and you figured that would be okay. Maybe with the injury, like the snow would actually hinder him. And he looked great, so it was like, okay, is he now the new version of Nick Chubb in these last 2 weeks? No, so maybe you're right. Maybe he needs the snow as like a filter against the ground. It helps his joints better, less. I'm not a physics major.
But it was
I run a lot in the snow. It's not necessarily any easier.
Did Jonathan Brooks re-injure that ACL yesterday?
Like he tore the same ACL.
Oh God, that sucks.
I mean, I don't. For the sake of if there's any career left in the NFL, I don't think he can play next year. I think you have to just let this heal. You have to essentially write off his first 2 years and hope that like 2026 he can get back stronger. Like that's I think how they have to play it. He's got. I mean, players. He wants to play football, so he's going to push to be played again next year. But
no,
I mean, the Panthers slow played this too. Like they barely this is his first touch of the game, and it just apparently they didn't slow play it enough.
That sucks.
I almost wondered if this year should have been a total redshirt year, him not play a game, and next year his knee is stronger.
I mean, it was close. Why would they? I don't even know why they would put him in. Why they did put him in. It's the same thing with Trevor.
Why did they take a second-round running back with a torn ACL when he's not even that good? That was the other thing too. Is like, why did they even draft him? Like it was,
and then
it almost does seem like
after giving Hubbard the extension. Why play him? You don't need him. You obviously don't need him. There's no reason to put him in.
To help save Hubbard, to help save Chuba Hubbard and steal him from some touches.
For what? What are you saving him for?
Yeah, next year. That's the thing. No,
it's the same
thing.
But
then to that point, like again, football players want to play football, right? Like I'm sure Jonathan Brooks wanted to play a lot sooner than he did this year,
but that's the job of in theory, that should be the job of the coach in the organization to protect them from themselves. Like Trevor Lawrence.
If all the medical staff is saying his knee is healthy and it's good to go, though,
why would you play him though? There's no reason to play him this year. You're not going to the playoffs.
But then to that point, like, should every team just bench all their good players? Like, should Garrett Wilson not play another snap this year?
Yes. If they're hurt, yes. If they came in hurt, yes. Trevor Lawrence.
But, I mean, in theory, Brooks wasn't hurt anymore, right? If the medical staff had cleared him to say his knee is healed,
no,
it's just the type of thing that could happen to any player, right? And I mean, it obviously doesn't, and maybe his knee really wasn't ready for this, but that's also something can a scan tell you?
You held him out for 13 weeks.
Yeah, and it still wasn't like.
Yeah, so why put him in now? That's my question. If you held him out for 13 weeks, why put him in now? There's no logical reason to put him in now, especially when he came into the season with an injury. Trevor Lawrence, there was no logical reason to put Trevor Lawrence in that game.
Oh, for sure, because they've gone and put him on IR and said he needs shoulder surgery. So clearly the shoulder wasn't right anyway, and he went out with a concussion, and that's ultimately why he's probably not going to play the rest of the year. But I may as well get the shoulder surgery now then, right? Like,
right. I mean,
then you probably should have got it 2 weeks ago.
Michael Pittman, what? Like,
I mean,
he might go on IR because he's back, and then he plays the next game.
I mean, they did hold him out that one game a couple weeks later, but
yeah,
the fact that he's only missed one game from that means, okay, probably it's not as serious as it was initially reported too.
But he doesn't. Well, I mean, some of it is his quarterback, but he doesn't really look that great.
I thought he looked pretty good the week before the bye without Josh Downs. He had I think it was 94 yards. Like that was, and that was maybe the first game where he really saw it. So I don't know. Yeah, I get it. Like if there's any little bit of injury, you don't play him, but then that's a lot of players that aren't playing. Right? Like you almost can't do that because you only have a certain because a lot of these players probably aren't injured enough to be put on injured reserve, and you only have so many spots. So any little bit of because I doubt there's very few players in the NFL that are actually fully healthy right now that aren't dealing with some type of nagging ailment somewhere, even if it's not heavy enough to be considered an injury. So I think what these.
I mean, I think you can say that going into like the fourth or fifth week. These guys are getting hit like they're in a car wreck, like constantly every Sunday. So I doubt that there is any player that goes through a season without an injury. Like
Even if they never miss a snap, they're still playing
exactly.
through something. But
Yeah.
and then to that point, like coaches have a hard time benching guys if they're healthy enough to play, even if they're not 100%.
I mean, I understand that you're coaching for your job. I understand that you want to win games, even if the win is quote unquote meaningless towards that season, that you want to go out on a high. I also think that there is the thought process, aka Jonathan Brooks. You have a rookie too, so someone who's not used to the speed of the NFL game. You kept him out 13 weeks with an ACL injury that he came into the season with. There's no sense in playing him. There's no reason to play him except for the fact that you're paying him. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I think to that we want to get him ready to like the NFL experience, right? Get him like exactly what you said, get him used to the speed of the NFL. If he goes through his whole rookie season and doesn't experience that as much as had time in practice, what is that? Has he really gained anything? So I
I think,
get playing him, but
I mean, it's the argument of sitting quarterbacks out for a year, like rookie quarterbacks out for a year. They come in, they don't necessarily come in worse when Jordan Love didn't come in worse because he sat behind Aaron
in
Rodgers.
fact, because it was told that like his mechanics and his accuracy like was really
Got
off
better.
those first couple of years, and he needed to structurally to sit. But it feels like should Bryce Young have not played last year, right? And maybe
Right,
this year they end up having to bench him because of that. Like, was that? But Bryce Young's mechanical accuracy wasn't the problem. It was all just like speed of the NFL. And
right. So I
I,
don't know.
I,
I
I
mean,
get why you're saying that. I totally agree with you that like in a perfect world, like any player gets injured in any way, they're not playing until they're healed. But then you might actually run out of football players that way.
well, I mean, some teams actually, Giants, they should run out of players.
Well,
Like,
I mean, some teams are just so bad it doesn't even matter. Like the starters,
right.
backups, there's no difference. I think that's their problem. And yeah, Jamie. Well, we could feel sorry for ourselves. Jamie was one Brock Bowers yard away from hitting a plus 2,075 odd leg 10 leg parlay. So plus 2,075 odds. And he's 1 yard away from hitting the 10 legs. That's rough. Makes me feel a little better about ranking Nick Chubb so high. But yeah, Ford actually outscored Nick Chubb. That was something Jamie talked about, which I suppose, I mean, he didn't do that well to really help me in Scott Fishbowl, but I did play Jerome Ford in Scott Fishbowl. I left Juwan Jennings on the bench, though, because that was a decision.
Yeah,
I
no one
figured
could.
he's a receiver who doesn't get return yards. Brock Purdy with his shoulder. Like, what kind of state is this in? 30 points. Oh.
That game sucked. That game sucked.
Well,
Like
the Bears suck.
that
The
game
49ers
sucked.
didn't suck. They were pretty good.
That game sucked. No one. I would be like Kettle was the person to play if you were going to play anyone, or the backup running back who got hurt too.
Which I was gonna
So
say, I got Garendoed in the FBC Dynasty League. That is one of the plays that really helped tilt the matchup. 26.8 points from Garendo.
yeah, I
Your
mean,
highest scoring player, and probably the guy that's going to get you to the playoffs.
what's up, Albert? AM, AM. Yeah, but I mean, everything about that game was just wrong, just so wrong. It was just
And
4 yards in the
well,
first half. That's not even
and
logical. That's not even, you can't even think
the
that can
49ers
happen.
were at over 300 yards, I think.
Yeah, they had 319 yards, and Chicago had 4 the first half. How is that even possible? Like on a professional team, that's just.
I
I
mean,
feel very
I
bad
think
for
I think
Thomas Brown.
they actually gained something like I think it was 27 yards between Swift rushing and Caleb's passing, but then took 23 yards in sacks and lost it all.
It was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous game, and I don't even know what they were doing. I feel bad for Thomas Brown, but I mean, because it makes Eberflus look that much better. But shit, that's just ridiculous. It,
Well,
yeah,
and this is the concern with like him being risen to this job too quickly. Did he pay less focus on the offense this week? Because suddenly he was having to pay attention to a whole team. Like this guy that's really just learned to be an offensive coordinator, fairly do doing fairly well considering the tools he's been given and the team he was inheriting. But like, is going a head coach immediately and after like a little too? I don't know. Feels like you should have just made the special teams coordinator the head coach. I mean, I think I said that earlier, and you talked about how bad the special teams have been. So like, what does that guy know? Um, I do really think that the Bears are one of those teams that just doesn't invest properly in special teams from a player standing point. That's not even on the coaches. That's on the GM. You need core special teamers on your team that are like these are excellent special teams players that whether they play offense or defense is irrelevant. If they're playing every special team snap, they're excelling for us. Like you need those players, and some teams just don't pay attention to that at all. And it feels like the Bears are one of those teams.
I just, I mean, when I can remember at the beginning of the season all the promise is, and I did too. Like a lot of the articles I wrote for another site were about how optimistic the outlook for the Bears looked with what they had surrounded Caleb with, and it's like blew up quick. Like I don't know.
As much as it was fun getting Roma Dunze there, and I know Caleb really wanted him,
right.
could you maybe have gotten a better offensive lineman? Could you got a future left tackle? Because they solved the right tackle problem 2 years ago. The year they instead of drafting Bryce, they trade down. They got one of the picks they made there was Darnell Wright. I think his name is Darnell Wright at right tackle. And it seems like he's probably the best Bears offensive lineman. So that was one they solved. Oh, okay, we got our right tackle. We're good. Like, no, that whole line needs to be worked on. It felt like they haven't addressed it enough.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, but they were in games. Even with that, they were in games.
Sure.
You know.
Oh yeah, I mean they should have beat the Packers, got a field goal block to win the game. Should have beat the Vikings, got a field goal block to win the game.
Should have beat Washington. They should have beat the Commanders.
I don't go that far. I love Jaden Daniels too much, but you are right. They should have.
Oh, I love Jaden Daniels too, but they should have beaten the
I
Commanders.
also love the Packers, so yeah. No, but yeah, it's
I mean,
you're right. Yeah, they definitely had chances in these games, and at a certain point, though, losing these close contests weighs on you, and then now it seems like this team is just demoralized.
see, and then you have the converse of that, where Kansas City is like winning games that are like magic, like crazy.
I mean, they're the other side. They're the excellent special teams team. Like they invest in their special teams, so that's the type of team that can block a field goal when you need to win a game.
Oh my God,
because the Packers have become that in recent years, ever since Rich Bisaccia has been there. He probably has more roster control than any coordinator in the NFL, let alone special teams coordinator. Like he has as much control on like the roster and who stays as the head coach does, because it's ultimately Gutekunst that gets final call on the roster, the GM. So Matt LaFleur clearly has input. Rich Bisaccia has a ton of input too, and they are keeping players that Rich wants on special teams just for that sake. And what it's happening is that the Packers are now a good special teams team instead of worst in the league before they got Bisaccia, right? So like the teams that ignore special teams from a front office standpoint are just doomed to not be good teams.
yeah, I mean that's probably true.
It's your special teams shouldn't just be your third string, fourth string players that aren't good enough to play on offense or defense because they're clearly not that great of players. Not to say like you could be an amazing special teams player, just not have a real role on offense.
Right.
But like if you're just choosing your backups to be special teams instead of, oh, this guy has to play special teams, and then, oh, he's good on offense too. Like there's just that philosophy difference, I think, is a huge thing for teams. And also, I want to address Jamie's comment here. Like Roschon's better than Brooks. You know who else is better than Jonathan Brooks? You know I had a better tape grade on than Jonathan Brooks? Chuba Hubbard. So, like, and I was saying it all year, like Brooks was going to need to come in and prove that he was better than Hubbard. At this point, like he needs to prove that he can be playing in the NFL anymore. So to me, I think very clearly, easily Hubbard's a better running back than Brooks. And I think there's a ton of running backs. Like to me, this was such an awful draft class. Like, why are you wasting a second round pick when you're the Panthers? You have so many holes on your whole roster. You're going to waste a second round pick on a running back with a torn ACL. I thought that was just a bad draft decision from a team building standpoint for the Panthers, and now it just looks even worse.
Yeah, I mean,
it made no sense to me.
I don't know why they put who drafted a wide receiver that came in hurt.
Pearsall, the 49ers?
Was Pearsall hurt? I mean, no. Yes. Yeah, because Pearsall's the one that got shot, right?
Yeah, obviously that happened after the draft, so 49ers.
Right, but someone hurt their ACL or one of the one of the wide receivers hurt themselves in a bowl game and got
This year, are
drafted.
you talking
So,
this year's draft?
yeah, I think. I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, it's it's kind of like I can see if you have the space, if you think this guy has great potential, drafting someone who got injured like late in the season, like Cooper DeJean falling to Philly because of the injury.
Sure.
I mean, and then they held him out
I think
until
the
what?
Packers had the pick, then traded down, even though the Packers might have. I think the Packers took like 4 defensive backs in the draft, so in theory they might have been interested in DeJean, but they traded down with the Eagles to enable him to get that.
Wait, they traded out of the. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
they had an early second round pick. I think it might have been the last remnant of the trade with the Jets for Aaron Rodgers. I think they got the Jets second this past year, and they traded down, and the Eagles were able to trade up and get DeJean. So now the Packers, I think, with that pick traded down and got Edwin Cooper, and he's hurt right now, but when he's played, the snaps have looked pretty good at linebacker.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's also it's probably like 55% position dependent on and what the injury is. But I mean, I can understand if they had a high regard for Brooks. I just don't understand them putting him in. You know what I mean? Like
I guess my thing is I don't understand why people are so high on him. Like I thought this guy was average at best. But that's because I didn't think anyone in this class was worth a second round pick. No, to me, no running back should have gone on day 2. Like 4th rounder at best. Like I thought this had good depth in the class.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of guys that could be NFL players. I mean, right now we have 2 guys that have become starters. That usually doesn't happen. We usually have rookie running backs coming in and barging down the door. About 2017, how many of them immediately became starters, and a lot of them are still starters to this day. And that's part of that class is just so good, and that class is still taking jobs. But like we've got Bucky Irving and Tyrone Tracy. No one else could overcome the current running backs on their teams.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I also kind of think the draft is like the lottery too. I mean, you don't really know. Like,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I
mean, I could be wrong about what I think film grade wise. Like, I thought Bucky Irving was actually pretty. Like, I thought Bucky Irving was worse than Jonathan Brooks. Like, I thought he was one of the bad running backs. Turns out he's the best guy in the class. So.
That's what I was talking about, Dan.
Jameson Williams, right? And I mean, they took him 12th overall.
Yeah,
like you're saying, he fell to 12 to Lions. When I know some people said they thought he was the best receiver in that class. He was better than Garrett Wilson, better than Drake London. If he doesn't tear his ACL, he probably goes to Atlanta at 8.
Well, very happy that he tore his ACL, then I'm sure. But I mean,
now he is. Now that he's got through it, he's on the Lions. Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Very.
Thank you, Bam. Great call.
Thanks,
there.
Bam.
I forgot about that.
Thank you.
And a couple things about the Browns, or if you want to keep going on this.
No, go ahead.
Well, Jamie, and I mean, this is going to be pro Pittsburgh, but the Browns have not beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh since 2003 with Tim Couch, except a playoff game. There is that Baker Mayfield playoff game. But other than that, though, regular season, 20 straight seasons or something, 21 straight seasons. So congrats. Good job, Gladys.
Yeah, I didn't think they would win that game. I didn't actually think they'd win the snowball game, but still.
Well, you were right about that one.
It was Jameson. It's You cannot underestimate the effect the Winston balance.
Apparently, the team said they are going to stick with him, even though they've now been officially eliminated from the playoffs.
Well, instead of going to DTR?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Well, I think if you thought you had a future with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I could see why you'd want to do that if you really thought he was going to be a quarterback of the future. I have a feeling Dorian Thompson-Robinson is not the quarterback franchise future for the Browns. So, and I think they know that too, which is why they're just going to stick with Jameis.
Plus, I think
Jameis probably has more long-term potential than DTR does.
And for whatever reason, I think players in the locker room love Jameis. Like, I think his own team loves him.
Yeah.
Like, I think when the Saints, they loved him. I think, you have a players coach. I think Jameis is a player's player. Like he cares about the players and he knows like if they need a touchdown or if they need yards or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I and so I think the players love James, and I don't think that you could have gone to DTR after the Deshaun thing and gone, yeah, we're okay.
It
I,
like it I'm not a big Jameis Winston fan, but at least because he's like part of it, I think there's an appeal if he's kind of goofy, he's kind of silly, but he also takes his job seriously. Like he goes to practice every day. Like he knows what to work on. He knows he probably shouldn't be throwing this many interceptions. He still does, but I mean that's so. It's not like he's just like, oh, I don't care, right? Like I feel like Jay Cutler had that attitude where he just didn't really care, and that's why he was throwing so many. Whatever, I don't care. Like Winston, it does affect him, and so I think that the team relates that. Like he's trying. We know he works hard, and he's pretty fun to be around, right? I think those things together, like because Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers worked hard and like detail oriented, but it also doesn't seem like they're the funnest guys to be around. So.
what to me, Jameis is like the anti Russell Wilson. Like they kind of
You
say
know
the
what?
same.
I get what you're saying. I almost disagree because they almost are the same, but they're just like Jameis comes a little bit. Okay, I'll let you explain. Sorry.
Jameis, like Russell Wilson, comes across as not authentic. Jameis comes across as just a goofy authentic. Like
because I see both as goofy, but you're right. Okay, I think you're right. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like Russell Wilson.
What Russell's
Russell
trying
Wilson
to be cool
is too. He's too like PR. You know what I mean? Like it's not spontaneous. It doesn't come across as spontaneous. It comes across as something that a PR team would put together and tell you to
rehearsed and
say.
practiced.
Yeah, and Jameis just comes across as he's that kid that all his friends have been athletes. That's all he knows, and so he's just socially inept, except when he's on the football field or when he's talking about football. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And he's just goofy, and it comes across as authentic. I think he's the anti Wilson. He's the anti Russell Wilson. Plus, I don't think that many players like Russell Wilson. Like
I think, well, and I mean, I guess we'll talk about the Steelers next in that, but like, does feel like Russell Wilson tries to be cool, whereas Jameis doesn't try to be cool, and that's why he's viewed as cooler because he's not trying. That's why I'm so cool because I never try to be cool. I'm just
yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's where we're going with
thank you. But okay, so how do the Steelers players like Russ? And that's what one thing I was wondering was, man, like Wilson and Fields together, like is Wilson going to really help Fields? Like he's going to help teach us some things about football that maybe he hadn't heard yet from another really like a truly elite quarterback. Like that would help Fields' perspective so much. But all you hear from Chicago is how beloved Fields was in the locker room. Again, guy who worked hard every day. Everyone wanted to run through a wall for him. He gave a crap about the football and the team, and he wanted to win. And every loss really affected him. And like that resonated with the players. And I think Fields is someone that even before he was drafted, people were just like Dan Orlovsky just hucking garbage towards him in his direction, right? And I wonder if players have seen how bad the media's treated Justin Fields and they extra stepped up for him, but it feels like he's also earned their respect because of his work ethic and just authenticity. I wonder if Russell Wilson was going to learn that from Justin Fields, right? Like learn how to be beloved in the locker room. How do you think it's been this year with the Steelers with those two quarterbacks in the locker room?
I think that the players, here's the thing, winning solves everything. I think the players love Justin Fields. I think that they were not happy when Tomlin made the decision to go, but Wilson is winning. And so it's acceptable. You accept Russell Wilson because he's winning. I still think that he has that gloss of a PR machine about him that isn't quite a Steeler kind of thing. Let me go to the children's hospital, but with Sierra and have pictures taken. Whereas Justin Fields does community work without the pictures taken. Do you know what I mean? I think that I think Justin Fields fits more the Steeler mold than Russell Wilson does, but Russell Wilson is winning, and as long as he's winning, you're not gonna bash the quarterback who's winning. You just don't.
Does it also feel like Russell has toned down the awkwardness this year? Like when he went to the Broncos, he really put himself out there. Feels like he's reeled it back a little bit. Does it seem like it?
Well, I think that I think that's a Steeler thing. I mean, I don't think that
That
Tomlin
was
let it
part of
pass.
the obligation. Like, okay,
Yeah,
we'll sign you, Russ, but all this BS, it's got to stop. Like, this is,
yeah. I
and
think that
Tomlin, that's the respect he has for Tomlin, and he's willing to just, okay, I'll pull back on that on my personality because it's Mike Tomlin's show. This is not a team that's run by the quarterback as an
right.
emotional leader in the locker room. The quarterback certainly contributes, but the emotional leaders of that team are TJ Watt and Mike Tomlin, really.
Yeah, Cam Hayward too, I would say. I would
Sure,
say
yeah, that's a
Cam
good
Hayward
point.
is
That's the identity of that team. That's the heart and soul of that team is those defensive players.
yeah, and I think that and I agree with Bam. I think Russ got a lot of uh, people more on his side because Sean Payton was such a dick to him, and he was such an obvious dick to him, and Russ never like outwardly reacted to it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he kind of
that
just
might have earned him respect from players that he was willing to
yeah,
take it and not.
and
It's
not
it's also a little unfair because he played a lot better last year than he did his first year in Denver.
yeah. Well,
So, and
yeah,
maybe that was still Sean Payton was expecting more because he's seen Russell Wilson win a Super Bowl. So he was maybe expecting still a better level than that, and just didn't quite match what he wanted. But it was certainly a step forward than what it was in 2022.
I think Sean Payton has a lot of problems with what's the word ownership. With it's not my fault that
Oh yeah, accountability.
accountability. Thank you.
He's the fancy Matt Eberflus because apparently that's a big problem with the Bears is lack of accountability whatsoever. He's the
Yeah,
he's the Matt Eberflus who actually is smart at football because I think part of it is Eberflus is just an idiot.
yeah. I think that is part of it.
There's
Unfortunately,
no situational awareness on like game calling and stuff. And I mean, yeah, Bam, we're a very pro Tomlin podcast here. With the way the season's gone, though, like I know we've talked about like early in the season, oh, Sam Darnold's resurgence, like Kevin O'Connell, it seems like he's the favorite for Coach of the Year. Does Tomlin get any credit for this whole Russ Fields thing? How he managed that and how they've since making the switch at quarterback? What they've lost 2 games, 1 game, I think.
I think we've lost two. Um,
Yeah, 10-4, right?
yeah.
Fields lost 2, Wilson's lost 2.
I think that I don't. I I don't think that Tomlin. It's really weird. Like O'Connell is seen as a uh, offensive minded guru. You know what I mean? I don't think Tomlin isn't seen like that. Tomlin is seen like a head coach. Like he is seen not someone who is X's and O's, although I think he does do the X's and O's for the defense and he knows the X's and O's. He's just seen as like the umbrella coach. Whereas we have people like O'Connell and LaFleur who are seen as head coaches who are, and it's not smarter, who,
There's a visible thing, their offensive scheme. You can see
right,
it. Like you can, okay, this is how their offense is run. Tomlin doesn't really have that. His
right,
defensive systems have traditionally been Tampa 2, which is what he learned when he was in Tampa. But it's also the scheme doesn't. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. The scheme doesn't matter for Tomlin. It actually is the details. And like you said, he does the X's and O's with the players. He's there with them, making sure they tackle properly. Like he is so
right.
detail oriented that it's stuff that you see in practice, but game day you don't really see the Tomlin effect other than how hard the players played. It seems like it's easy to it's tough to I guess make that tangible. I suppose
Yeah.
that's
And I
maybe
think,
why he's never won Coach of the Year because he doesn't have that one thing he does that you can outwardly see as oh my god that innovation is so great. He doesn't really have any big schematic innovations that are totally game changing. He's just okay, this is the game of football. How do you play it the best?
yeah. So I mean, I can see
And
why
and the
Tomlin,
problem is his whole streak of not losing seasons hurts him in a sense because it feels like, and this isn't just the NFL. There's a lot of sports where new head coach comes on because the other team is so bad and they do marginally well,
and
they
they're
get coach
great.
of the year.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
for Chicago with Trubisky, it was I can't remember now. Matt something. It was the other Matt, not Eberflus, but who was before?
Nagy?
Matt Nagy. He won Coach of the Year on that, where like, oh, there was no expectations, and then Trubisky's second season, they go to the playoffs, and oh yeah, Nagy's Coach of the Year. Well, he's not really that good of a coach. They just lucked.
I
I
didn't
mean,
know Matt Nagy was
Rodgers,
coach of the year.
yeah,
That makes me very sad
2017. That was the
inside
year
my core. Like, what?
Rodgers broke his collarbone, so the Packers. I mean, they should have signed Colin Kaepernick, but that's a whole other thing. So the Brett Huntley season was a disaster. I mean, the Lions were still the Lions at that point, so they were nowhere anywhere close. I mean, I think they had Patricia at head coach, so that was a disaster. And
Oh God.
that was a year where the Vikings, I think they had Kirk Cousins, but their defense was so awful that they lost too many games and they didn't make the playoffs. And just by that token, the Bears make the playoffs and Matt Nagy's coach of the year. It's wild, right? So I think a lot of times it's the previous year's expectations because Tomlin's been coaching for so long. The previous year is never that bad. He's never had a losing season. So he doesn't like, oh, this year it's a way better coaching job than last year. And it feels like that almost hurts him from being coach of the year. Because at any point during his entire tenure as head coach, he probably could have been named coach of the year at any point and it would have made sense.
Oh my God.
And I think the voters just have a hard time deciding when's the year they're finally going to do it. And it's probably not going to be this year either. So, does Jamie want to join us?
That Nagy is won coach of the year. It's painful.
Jason Garrett won coach of the year. There have been some awful coaches winning coach of the year just because the expectations were low and they exceeded their expectations. Like sorry, Jamie, I'll let you rant here. Jason Garrett won coach of the year simply because they drafted Dak Prescott and they drafted Ezekiel Elliott and he played them, right? Like all he did was decide that they're going to play and they were amazing and he got coach of the year for it. And it's like, oh, he got credit for this. No, your GM lucked out getting your quarterback in the 4th round. Zeke was a good pick, and it changed the team. It had nothing to do with Garrett. He won coach of the year. So
see, that doesn't hurt me as much as Nagy winning coach of the year before Tomlin. I don't know why.
Nagy to me, I think they're both awful. I don't think either of them are good coaches. So I think it's both. It's equally as painful, I suppose. But yeah, no, for sure. Tomlin's definitely way more deserving of a head coach of the year award than those two.
And Nagy,
someone who's deserving of tons of praise for calling out Zach Charbonnet as a top 10 running back. Broke. Welcome to the show, Jamie. Thanks for joining us. I suppose we maybe should start talking about this Monday night game, right?
Kenny Pickett was his quarterback and he didn't have a losing season.
Yeah, I know, right? Like that should have been it last year when you got to the playoffs with Pickett and Rudolph. How did you not win it last year?
Dude, Tomlin's a coach that could probably have a winning season with Deshaun Watson.
No.
Technically, Bill O'Brien's done that, but
no, we don't even want to talk about that. That's disgusting.
So yeah, I'm here for the props. Just wanted to give my input when you guys talk about it.
Yeah, that's maybe the signal to get to the game. So yes, Cincinnati Bengals with Zach Taylor as head coach and the Dallas Cowboys with Mike McCarthy as head coach. Oof. To be fair, those guys will never win coach of the year. So that's at least we can take solace in that.
Mike McCarthy's number 1 coach of the year in Green Bay?
No, he never did.
Okay.
Won a Super Bowl, which is good. That's all I care about. But yeah, no, he would never have deserved coach of the year.
No, but neither does Matt Nagy. So
no, for sure. Yeah. And that's a problem, right? Like
right.
I think also guys with good quarterbacks get hurt by it. Like, oh, McCarthy was never going to win coach of the year because he had Aaron Rodgers. Why would you give him coach? It's all just Aaron Rodgers, right? And that was, I think, part of the argument. Which, to be fair, actually is kind of true because McCarthy's offense really wasn't that great. Like, it was Aaron bail us out a lot of the times. Aaron bail us out on 3rd down, which he often would. Made McCarthy look good to a certain point. But yes, Bengals, 4.5-point underdogs.
When did it go to 4.5? I thought it was 5.5.
It was 5.5 like an hour ago, and now it's straight 5.
Yeah, it's been fluctuating all day between 4.5 and 5.5.
All right, we can stick with 4.
Oh, the Red Wings are losing. Great, that sucks. You made me check whatever it's at. But yeah. Anyway, regardless of what the line is, Bengals are favored against the Cowboys in Dallas, which I guess that's last year would have been surprising. This year, Dallas doesn't.
No, not surprising.
I guess let's just get right into it, Gladys. You and Dan both picked the Bengals 4.5 or 5.5 or whatever. How many? Doesn't matter how many. You'd probably take the Bengals at 7.5 against the Cowboys.
I would not.
Okay, well, luckily you don't have to. You can.
Yeah.
I actually have you guys down at 4.5. So if you want to take that, like that's an advantage for you guys. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, 4.5 for the Bengals. And what was your reasoning behind it?
Because Dallas sucks at home.
Yeah.
You didn't even have to say at home, but sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you were going to say Dallas sucks. That's the scientific reasoning.
They suck a lot at home. And
did Dan say something? He just said Bengals. You didn't really say why. Probably the same thing. Dallas sucks.
Yeah. And then, I mean, they have the better quarterback. They have the better receivers. I'm not even sure CeeDee Lamb's going to play the whole game. They have the better run game. It's just the defense.
With no Zach Martin, you could argue the Bengals probably have the better offensive line.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
and the Cowboys.
Orlando Bloom's out too, right?
Oh, is he? Orlando Bloom. You mean
Orlando Brown?
I love Orlando Bloom though. That's
Orlando Brown is out too, I think.
You see, when I checked the inactives, I wasn't looking for linemen, so.
Oh. I mean, it doesn't
yeah,
matter.
Orlando Brown's definitely out. It's okay. Maybe not. Okay, so both teams are without their best offensive line.
Yeah, but I think Burrow's like really good under pressure, and I'm not sure Cooper Rush is. So.
Sure. Yeah. No, he's good even when he can take. Yeah. He can make it work behind a poor offensive line. He's done that his whole career. He's used to it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I don't think they'll. I mean, I think the game could be close just because both defenses are so bad, but I don't see them losing in Jerry World. I just don't see that happening.
So, Jamie,
Although
what do
they
you?
might.
I guess with all these different spreads, whether it's 4.5, 5.5, like what would you pick just on a? I know you love having your alternate spreads, so you'll find a way to get the Bengals with like with plus odds somehow and boost that down and combine into a parlay to actually get like positive yards out of it, but like have the Bengals at like plus 4.5 or something. But like,
well, I added just a straight money line for Bengals on my parlay, but on a straight bet, I would definitely take Bengals at -5, even 5.5.
the one thing I looked, the Bengals, all 4 of their wins this year have covered the 5.5 spread or 4.5 spread, whatever it was. So when they win by enough to cover this. Problem is they just haven't won that much this year. So they're like 4 for 6 in that regard, which essentially just matches their record perfectly. They either cover it or they lose outright. So from that perspective, it almost does make sense to just not even take the money line, to just go on 4.5, -4.5 for the Bengals, because if you think they're going to win, then you probably think they're going to win by 5. Or you can be crazy like me and actually take the Cowboys as 4.5-point underdogs.
Yeah, that is crazy.
This goes in. I'm picking Dallas, baby.
Okay.
There's a few reasons for this. One is to also keep this interesting, because now if I get this wrong and you and Dan get it right, that's really setting up next week to really be interesting with a doubleheader. Could definitely overtake me in the standings, which I am. 27-21. Dan is 21-27. Gladys is 20-28. So
okay.
You're 7 points behind me with, I guess, technically 9 points to go. 3 this week and then 6 picks next week as well.
Not sweating it.
Yeah. Well, especially now that I'm picking Dallas, right? Like, oh, this is going to be easy. One thing I was looking at was the Cowboys 6 times this year have either won or lost by less than 5, and so either won the game outright or prevented a team from covering this type of spread. 6 times they've lost by more, and they've gotten crushed when they're losing by 30 sometimes. So it's very hit or miss for Dallas, and certainly very hit or miss for the Bengals, where it's they're either winning and easily covering or just flat out losing. So it's weird. In theory, I'm looking at these teams, and Dallas has the better record. They have more wins, but I feel like the Bengals are the better team, and they will win. So
both of them are mathematically still viable for the playoffs, though, right?
Yep, I believe so.
Okay.
Bengals probably are close to getting eliminated with a loss, though.
I think if they lose tonight, they're definitely eliminated because of but
yeah.
I'm not.
I think one thing that's definitely saving Dallas too is right now the last wild card team is Washington. They have a head-to-head win against them, so if they could get to even just to tie them, that gives them a chance. So,
okay.
Rest edge. Dallas has not played since Thanksgiving Thursday, and the Bengals did have to play last Sunday night against the Chargers?
Yep.
So they're on essentially almost exactly a full week of rest, whereas Dallas has a week and a half. And this late in the season, I kind of wonder if that's going to make the difference. And especially with now that Parsons is back and this Dallas defense is there, especially Orlando Brown.
I think that's going to make the difference. Parsons being back.
And being healthy, and then Trayvon Diggs being back. You've got all your defensive players. So that's why I'm going to take the weird pick of Cowboys plus 4.5 and the lower on the 50.5. Because I don't think the Bengals are going to smash them, and it's going to be a huge shootout. So I'm taking the lower. Give me anything at 50, I'll take it.
Wait, you're taking 50 or 50.5? What is it?
50.5, I assume.
You go loin at 50.5 and the Cowboys.
Yeah.
What's your prop bet?
Well, it was Chase Brown, but I guess I'll share all mine then. I of course had to pick the Canadian Chase Brown in these.
Is he Canadian by adoption? Isn't he Canadian by adoption?
No, pretty sure he and his brother were born in London.
Were they? Okay.
Almost positive they were born in London.
All right. And what's Chase Brown's prop that you're taking?
So it's funny.
Isn't Dan taking a Chase Brown prop?
Well, Dan took one line. I
Okay.
took the other. So Dan went Chase Brown higher than 72.5 rushing yards, probably because the Cowboys suck and he'll run all through them. I'm going, it's funny, you just reverse the 2 and the 7. I'm going Chase Brown 27.5 receiving yards higher. So on the whole of the season, he's only hit that number 4 times, and 8 times he has failed to hit that number. However, in the 4 games since Zach Moss has been out, those are the 4 games that Chase Brown has hit it. Literally the last 4 games in a row he's hit that. So on the season as a whole, this may not look like a great line, but if you look at just the last month, this is super low. This is almost automatic. I have not felt this confident in the prop in a while. Probably
I like that. Dallas, they are allowing like 37.5 yards in the receiving to running backs. I also like Dan's over because they're also allowing 101 yards on average on the ground.
So, so Dan and I both agreeing with Chase Brown, and I did just look him up. Yeah, he was born in London. He and Sidney Brown, they're twin brothers. They're both born in London, Ontario. So, I mean, they may have been adopted, but I mean, they're Canadian. They're born on Canadian soil. Damn it, they're ours. I love Chase Brown. Got him in enough fantasy leagues too. Speaking of fantasy leagues, Bam here talking in one league. He's winning by 143.5 to 140.12. And essentially it's almost so like 3-point difference. It's basically CD to Chase, CD Lamb to Jamar Chase straight up. Or at least I assume that's Jamar Chase. Maybe that's Chase Brown.
Right.
Either way, I kind of like your odds there, Bam.
Yeah, because I had Jamar Chase as my number 1 overall this week.
Bam, is it Chase Brown or Jamar Chase? Which Chase is it? Oh my God,
I feel
Jamar. I'm guessing it's Jamar.
I'm going to guess Jamar, but Bam can correct us. But Jamie, it's funny. We had this debate on the Full Press Fantasy Pod because Brad also had Jamar number 1. I had Justin Jefferson. Should have gone Jordan Addison, not Justin Jefferson apparently. But yeah, I have Jamar Chase at number 2 this week. So I'm definitely.
Yeah, I think CD's more at like 9 for me.
See, I have a hard time putting him in the top 12 with Cooper Rush. I think I've put him at like 18. I know ECR the last couple of weeks he's been in the top 10, but I just can't with Cooper Rush.
Yeah, I know it's hard, but he's going to get the targets. He's going to catch at least half of them.
Yeah, it is Jamar Chase.
That sets up a nice.
It's funny because Bam, one of the things you're kind of counting on is I know Akili has both Jamar Chase and CD Lamb. I guess I should have Lamb. Sorry about that, folks. So like if that could be also another mechanism of how Bam falls out of the first round bye is if Akili scores enough with Burrow, Chase, and Lamb tonight. So that can mess up my first round bye even.
Is Bam's league a PPR league or is it standard?
Well, I don't know about this one. This one he's asking about the CD versus Chase or
CD
versus I don't know. So Bam, let us know the scoring settings too. Let's talk in scoring settings.
I mean, I think I don't know. CD's shoulder injury is what worries me. Like if they start getting down, I could just see him packing it in. But otherwise, he's got like 30+% of the target share. If it's PPR, I don't know that it's as safe as he thinks it is.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, man, Chase does get a ton of targets too, though.
Yeah.
If he has to split some with Higgins and CD doesn't have a Higgins.
Well, under your theory, he's splitting with Gesicki too.
Oh, I don't think he's going to do well.
But you said if the targets aren't funneled towards just Chase and Higgins, if Gesicki and Chase Brown are getting targets,
but that's the thing. But the targets might just be funneled all through Chase and Higgins. Like that's
because I actually have Higgins as my number 7 this week with Chase at number 1.
I think I have Higgins in the top 12 as well. I thought both were going to
and
Chase Brown I had as a top 5 running back as well.
I don't think it's a slam dunk, but I think he might be okay if they start losing. But with the PPR, CD's getting a ton of targets. Like Cooper.
Yeah, but he's only catching half of them.
Cooper is going to CD and his tight end. I mean, that's all he's throwing to.
That basically sounds like Dak, which I suppose just play like Dak. Do what Dak does.
I also think Dottle's going to get at least 4 to 5 targets
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing too. Sure, and I totally agree with you, Jamie. I think Dowdle's gonna
Right, they don't need
be
a passing game.
good play because the Bengals defense really isn't that strong either. Maybe that's how Dallas, especially Mike McCarthy, he loves to run the football. That's how he keeps this explosive offense off the field, is running a lot of Rico Dowdle. And then Bam's, I guess, concern is that the Bengals win by so much that they actually just stop passing. It's all Chase Brown game, and the Cowboys in comeback mode. That's a ton of targets to CeeDee Lamb. So I suppose the Bengals scoring too quickly, if it's not with Jamar Chase scoring the touchdowns, that's where you get worried. Now, if Chase has like 2 touchdowns in the first half, okay, they're in comeback mode. They might shut him down in the second half, but you still got 2 touchdowns. So that's probably enough points. So you're just hoping that if Chase can score touchdowns in the first half, that's or it's just close the whole way.
Yeah, because my score prediction, I think it was like 34-16 or 17.
So you would go lower as well then on the 50 and a half.
It's right around that 50.
I guess that is 50, yeah.
But I mean, they're going to have to get to that 34 points, and they're going to do it with Chase. They're going to do it with Higgins. They're going to do it with Chase Brown.
Yeah, I think actually we talked about this on Full Press Fantasy the other day too. I tend to be not so concerned. Oh, this team might blow out the other team and they bench their starters, because my thinking is, well, if they're benching guys in the fourth quarter, like early in the fourth quarter, they've probably put up so many points through 3 quarters, and that's a ton of fantasy productions, a ton of touchdowns available, that you're probably okay with that player playing 3 quarters of a game and smashing as opposed to a full game and not getting anything.
Yep.
The Titans just played a whole full NFL game against the awful Jags defense and put up 6 points. So.
Oh my god.
Anyway, Gladys, we didn't. I don't think we shared your prop.
Burrow higher than 1.5 touchdown passes, I think is what it was.
Yeah, I think that's what you said. Yeah, 1.5 touchdowns.
I like that. Yep.
I do too. I think there's a lot of touchdown upside in this game. Bam will certainly like that. Have them to Chase, please. Go to Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's had like what 3 in the last. He's thrown multiple touchdowns in the last 3 or 4 games. Unfortunately, it's not enough.
He's the reverse Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, everyone is the reverse Kirk Cousins right about now.
Well, the not good quarterbacks aren't, but all the good quarterbacks are. Yes. I don't know that Aiden O'Connell is the reverse Kirk Cousins. Or Mac Jones definitely isn't. He threw multiple interceptions and scored touchdowns. So Mac Jones is exactly what Kirk Cousins is. That's not good.
Jones only had 1 interception last week, didn't he? This week?
I thought he had
2. He only threw 1. Yeah.
Well, he still had 0 touchdowns. So the point stands. I think he has more interceptions than touchdowns since he's been starting with the Jags.
He's not a starting quarterback.
But he has 3 starts though, so he has been
He's
starting.
not the starting quarterback. Kirk Cousins is the starting quarterback for Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, Mac Jones is the starting quarterback for the Jags the rest of the season
by default, not by pay, not by choice.
I do agree with you that Kirk Cousins is better than Mac Jones, but the fact that
I didn't say Kirk Cousins was better than Mac Jones.
Oh, okay.
I just said Kirk Cousins is the starting quarterback, and Mac Jones was not.
And I was going to wonder, is Cousins playing so bad that that's not guaranteed anymore?
No, they're not. There's no way they're going to put Penix in this year.
I think at this point, the best thing to do for Penix's future is he starts next year.
Yeah.
And you plan for it to happen. You would give him all of training camp with a ton of first team reps, and he knows well in advance that he's starting week 1, 2025.
Yeah, don't just throw him in there now.
I do agree that that's maybe the best. Now, do you give him the last start of the season just to give him 1 start?
If they're out of the playoffs, maybe.
And you know what? They're so close with the Bucks that might actually not be. They might. Yeah, you're right. That might be a win and get in. And you want to put all that pressure on the rookie? That's fair.
Yeah, that division sucks. Like they're still viable for the playoffs. Like,
well, I suppose the only reason that division sucks though is that the 2 games Cousins looked amazing were against the Bucks. Because if he goes and loses those games, they're probably close to being eliminated already. Because that's 2 extra wins for the Bucks and 2 less wins for the Falcons.
But they're not. They beat the Bucks.
No, they won those games. So
exactly.
And that's probably the only reason Cousins still has his job is because he won those 2 games. To your point of they're waiting for them to get eliminated before they go.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so a minute to go. Let's recap all the picks. So,
okay.
Gladys, Dan, both taking the Bengals. I'm taking the Cowboys. I'm also taking the lower, and Dan and Gladys are both taking the higher. So this gives you both 2 chances to catch up to me here. Now, if Dallas wins, if Dallas wins and the under hits, man, my lead is getting insurmountable. For our player props, Gladys is going Joe Burrow higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Dan and I both chose Chase Brown props. I went higher than 72.5 Dan went higher than 72.5 rushing yards. I went higher than 27.5 receiving yards. So go Canadian.
And I'm going to throw one in there. Rico Dowdle. I'm going to go over 2.5 receptions.
Because you said you thought he was going to get at least 4, right?
Yeah, he's going to be doing. He did that pretty much all year. I don't think he had under 3 in like maybe 2-3 games. And Bengals are allowing like 4.2 per game on average. So I kind of like that 2.5 because they're going to be playing from behind.
And he gets most of that receiving work. Like they like you're saying, the Bengals allow 4.2 catches per game to running backs. If you have a team that's splitting the receiving work, then okay, they both maybe get 2, but like they're really not bringing Zeke out very much. Like Dowdle's getting almost all the snaps and all the important third down work too. So, and the one guy you might put out there as a pass catcher just because he's good in space, Deuce Vaughn, is a healthy scratch tonight.
Deuce Vaughn's a healthy scratch tonight?
Inactive again.
Okay.
So I did put together a quick 8-leg parlay.
Let's see.
So I got Rico Dowdle over 50 plus rushing yards, and then Rico Dowdle 2.5 receiving. Okay. And then I took the money line for the Bengals. Joe Burrow 225 plus passing. Chase Brown 50 plus rushing. CD 40 plus. T. Higgins 50 plus. Jamar Chase 50 plus. And that brought
alternating these lines a little bit because I imagine Chase's line is higher than 50, his normal line. So you're taking and this is part of the earlier thing. You're taking these alternate lines, putting them together so that you get plus odds.
Yep. So for an 8-pick parlay, it was plus 700. I had a boost. I got it to plus 1,050.
Nice. And I imagine, and I know the way you do this, Jamie, is you almost, I think, if anything, all 8 picks will be minus on their own. Right? They're all minus odds on their own.
Yeah. The only thing that was close was the what was it, the 2.5 receiving for Dowdle. Everything else was like lower than 200.
So yeah, you're taking a lot of safe bets, but you make it worth your while if you're taking them all together.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's the Jamie way. Alternate lines, parlay that stuff, baby.
Did Marcus Robinson get hurt yesterday?
He did.
Oh, okay.
On his what would have been his only catch that was called back for offensive and defensive pass interference. They essentially said you both interfered with each other, so we're calling it back. Usually they just let them play in those instances. Okay, they both committed interference. We're just gonna whatever happens. So, which is really stupid that this is the one time they do that because that would have been his only catch in the game. But that might also really have helped me against you in FTC Dynasty. So you benefit getting a big zero burger from DeMarcus Robinson.
So who's watching the game as the Simpsons characters?
I was gonna head to the bedroom and turn on we got a smart TV in there with
I think it's on Disney Plus. Paramount has it.
I am not.
I want to check it out.
The problem is Dan Orlovsky's commenting. So like normally I'd be like all favor of getting away from Troy Aikman, but Orlovsky is just as bad, if not worse, because he doesn't have all the experience of several years of failing at a color commentator. He's just several games of failing at it and just being an awful journalist. God. Plus, let's be real. Like I rip on Troy Aikman, but he was definitely a way better quarterback than Orlovsky. So I would rather hear what he has to say about football than Orlovsky because I'm not sure that he really gets football that well. He was never a good enough quarterback. I mean, he was, like I say, Orlovsky was the tank job quarterback. Oh, Colts, we want to get Andrew Luck. Dan Orlovsky's our guy. He'll tank us to the first pick. Oh, Lions, want to get Matthew Stafford? Dan Orlovsky's your guy. He'll tank you to that first overall. He won't even win a game that year for you.
Well, just because you're a bad quarterback doesn't mean you can't be a good announcer. I mean, look at Tom Brady. He was an awesome quarterback, and he sucks.
Yeah, they're definitely compartmentalized one or the other. My thing is, I don't think Orlovsky's good at either. I think he was a bad football quarterback. He's been a bad, like that's the thing. Like, why is he bad color commentator, bad journalist, bad just like panel guy? I think Orlovsky's awful.
All right.
And yes, this all stems from the stuff he said about Justin Fields all those years ago.
Yeah.
But like, why are you burying a kid with rumors that you could not corroborate and knew were false, right? Like that's just irresponsible journalism. And yet ESPN is like haven't punished him. In fact, we're giving him promotions and giving him more jobs after that. What? Clearly, this guy proved he's not capable of doing this. He's not very good. So I'm gonna pass once again. because ESPN's commentary crew is just the worst in sports.
Yeah,
I know Mina
ESPN's
Kimes is also color commentating. Just if she was just her and not Orlovsky, that'd be perfect. Why do they have to have a 3-man booth? Why does Orlovsky have to be there?
She's color commentating The Simpsons.
Yeah, it's I can't remember who the play-by-play guy is, but it's Mina Kimes and Dan Orlovsky as the color
Makes
commentator.
me so sad.
You think with this AI stuff going on nowadays, why can't John Madden just commentate every game?
So I am philosophically opposed to that, right? Like,
Yeah.
because John. Well, here's the thing. That would be exploiting John Madden without him getting the money for it, right? Like that's also costing other
There's
people
still Madden
jobs.
football, like the game.
Yeah, but that's a chosen endorsement. Like he like, and I'm pretty sure his estate and money in his family still gets money off the Madden game for use of the name. AI is a whole nother thing, like, because then it would be like recorded property is then like belongs to ESPN. So if they like reuse their own stuff, like they could say, "Oh, it's all ours," and then Madden's family gets nothing for it, right? So that's the dangerous thing.
Shoemaker getting the passes? Okay,
yeah, that's pretty gross.
Shoemaker.
Because I have Ferguson in my important salary cap contract league, and next week when the playoffs start, I'm really going to need Ferguson there. So yeah, I agree. maybe I won't play Ferguson.
Oh my god!
How did Jatavian Sanders do? Might have to start him.
Oh my god! All right, I gotta go. Bye, guys.
I think
Bye, Gladys.
Well, you know who else has to go? Dan Orlovsky does too, but I guess we have that authority here. But we do have the